ministers being brought forward to testify. I support ministers coming forward to explain what they did,
I have to give a few seconds to the honourable member of Nuez, Mr. Burnaby, to answer.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Well, the right use of resources is putting into place a national public inquiry on foreign interference now to make sure it's independent and make it transparent. That is what the will of this House, I think, will be this week, and that's why the NDP is presenting the motion tomorrow. That's right.
Statement by members. Déclaration de député. The honourable member for an opinion.
Madam Speaker, today is Nowruz, which means New Day in Persian. Yesterday, I was pleased to host a Nowruz celebration on Parliament Hill with the participation of about 700 Canadians of Iran, Azerbaijan, Afghan, Turkey, Kazakh heritage, and other Canadians. Nowruz is a time of renewal and new beginnings and shared aspirations of hope and optimism for the year ahead. I would like to take this opportunity to recognize the many communities that observe Nowruz and the important contribution that they make to Canada. I would also like to recognize Alma Rahmani for her hard work in assisting my office organize the Nowruz event. I would like again to recognize Mehdi Falahi and Nigar Aliyeva, who received an award for their service to their communities in Canada. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Parry Sound, Muskoka.
In over 70 countries today, the lives of lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, intersex, and queer individuals are criminalized. And in 12 of those countries, consensual same-sex conduct may be punished by death. Their only crime being themselves. On July 1st, 1960, on the eve of the passage of the Canadian Bill of Rights, Prime Minister Diefenbaker declared in this House his pledge to uphold our heritage of freedom for all mankind. That pledge was a call to action for all Canadians. In our world today, the LGBTIQ community is not free. Prime Minister Diefenbaker's call to action rings true again today. Each and every one of us are called to make Canada more than a mere symbol of freedom. Canada must be a champion for freedom, human rights, dignity for all people, not just here, but around the world. Thank you.
The honourable member for Glengarry, Prescott Russell.
Madam Speaker, today is International Francophonie Day. More than 320 million Francophones throughout the world celebrate this day. I would like to recognize the work of organizations like the Federation of Francophone and Acadian Communities, the Prescott Russell ACFO, the STG ACFO, as well as the one in Ottawa, and others that are working hard for the future of French. I would encourage all Canadians to discover our Francophone artists in person or online. For example, I'm thinking of Prospect Nelson, Les Rats de Swamp, and Melissa Ouimet, as well as, of course, Catherine Lévesque, who, as you will have guessed, are all from my area. As the head of the Parliamentary Francophonie Association and as a proud Franco-Ontarian, I'd like to wish everyone a very happy International Francophonie Day. The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Well, Madam Speaker, the International Day of Francophonie enables everyone to celebrate their common language, French. In Trois-Rivières, we have a poetry festival, we have the book festival, we also have theater associations. Through these various ways, we celebrate Francophonie throughout the year. And 2 people from the area will receive the Pléiade Award, the Order of the Pléiade, rather. Both of them have distinguished themselves by serving the ideals of the Francophonie. The Francophonie is not France. It represents everyone who lives, works, or studies in French, no matter who they are. It represents a language, a culture, values. I would personally invite everyone from Trois-Rivières to participate in the activities being organized. Together we will be speaking French. Together we are stronger. Long live the Francophonie.
For Richmond Hill.
At 5
5:24:28 p.m. today, 300 million people around the world will gather around the HoC table to mark the Persian New Year, Nowruz. Celebrated by many ethnicities, religions, and countries, Nowruz embodies a brighter future and victory over darkness. This mirrors what's unfolding in Iran, as its people are in quest for a free and peaceful nation. Mr. Speaker, in the name of the Women Life Freedom Movement, we in my household are symbolizing the 7 items of the 1402 HoC table in the following way. Sabze, the rebirth of a nation that fosters liberty. Samanu, the power of strength of Iranian women and youth. Senjet, the love of Iranians for their motherland. Sib, hospitality and compassion for the Iranian people. Serke, decades of perseverance in the fierce of repression. Seke, a future full of opportunities for youth people to prosper. And finally, Sir, the health and well-being of Iran as a nation. دریغ است که ایران ویران شود، کنام پلنگان و شیران شود، همه دشمنان از تو پربیم باد، دل بدسگالان بدون این باد، همه سال بخت تو پیروز باد، شبانه سیاه بر تو نوروز باد، هر روزتان نوروز، نوروزتان پیروز. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As the member for Portneuf-Jacques-Cartier and a strong defender of French, I am very proud to rise to speak about today, March 20th, the International Day of the Francophonie, which is now turning 53 and has a theme this year, 321 million Francophones and billions in cultural content. To celebrate Francophone cultural creations, their diversity, and the importance of making it easier to access this content online. A language doesn't belong to a country or region. It belongs to the individual, and only individuals can determine the future survival of a language. Modernizing the Official Languages Act is one way to reverse the decline of French, but we all need to do our part to stop that decline. We need to be there as Francophones while respecting the other language.
We need to work together to keep our country bilingual. French language is not a rival, but rather a distinctive force. Soyons fiers du
Let's be proud of the English-French bilingualism in our country today and throughout the year. We need to take action now.
The Honourable Member for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today, March 20th, marks Nowruz, the festival of new beginnings and rejuvenation. Observed this day, the spring equinox. Nowruz is celebrated by numerous cultures around the world, including Persian, Afghan, Baha'i, Ismaili, and Kurdish peoples. This past week, I had the pleasure of hosting a Nowruz celebration in my riding, which has one of the largest populations of Iranian Canadian and Afghan Canadians in the country. Our entire York Region Liberal Caucus joined with the local community. We all want to extend a huge thank you to our Prime Minister, who took time to join with us in support of the Iranian Canadian community. Whether to celebrate a festival of prosperity and new beginnings, or to hold the Iran regime accountable for injustice perpetrated against their people, our government always stands with the Iranian Canadian community. I also had the opportunity to attend a Nowruz celebration hosted by the Afghan Women's Organization's Refugee and Immigration Services. It was a fantastic opportunity to meet with so many vibrant and dynamic community leaders and to experience the cultural traditions of dance, poetry, and music of the Afghan community. Even as Canadians from different backgrounds celebrate Nowruz, we cannot forget the continuing struggle of the Iranian and Afghan people against human rights abuses and for equal rights for women. Canada and Canadians stand with all people in their fight for democratic liberties. To everyone celebrating Nowruz today, let me say, Haruz etan Nowruz, Nowruz etan Peruz, Happy Nowruz.
The Honourable Member for Nickel Belt.
Mr. Speaker, March 20th is International Francophonie Day, with a theme which is 321 million Francophones and billions in cultural content. This is the day to celebrate the French language. There are 10.4 million French speakers in Canada. As Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Official Languages, I would like to thank all of our partners, like the Canadian Federation of Francophone and Acadian Communities and the International Organization of the Francophonie. Your work strengthens the relationships in our larger Francophone family and increases our cultural and linguistic diversity. This is a very important day. It gives us an opportunity to celebrate our culture and the pride of our identity. I'd also like to congratulate the 12 French language school boards in Ontario and in my region of Nipissing, Sudbury, and Nickel Belt. They're celebrating their 25th anniversary. I'd like to invite all Francophones and Francophiles to celebrate this day. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Shepherd.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to wish Canadians of Kurdish, Persian, and Central Asian heritage a very happy Nowruz. On this day marks the start of their New Year. Nowruz is an ancient New Year celebration adopted by many Central Asian peoples. For Kurds, this year will be 2723, and the word Nowruz literally means a new year, marking the first day of their spring. In Kurdistan, Kurds will light fires and fireworks. They'll be heading to the mountains of Acre, which is credited and considered the home of the celebration of Nowruz. Azerbaijanis will serve sweets like baklava and shogargal, and I've had mine already. Persians will set the Hafsin table with the 7 primary items beginning with the letter S in their alphabet. The traditions are as varied as the people, their histories, and their values. Thank you to the Kurdish Vancouver community in Burnaby for inviting me to celebrate their New Year celebration with the lighting of their bonfire representing new life. Nowruz Piruz Bit, Nowruzatan Piruz.
The Honourable Member for Brampton Centre.
Mr. Speaker, this Wednesday, March 22nd, Muslims across the world, including myself, several members of this House, and many of my constituents in Brampton Centre, will begin the month-long observance of Ramadan. Ramadan is a time of patience, compassion, and generosity that ultimately brings us closer to our loved ones and our communities. As we abstain from food and drink from dusk to sunset and gather for prayers, we reflect on our blessings and are driven to give back to our communities through volunteering and charity. As time of charity and spiritual contemplation, Ramadan reminds us to put others' needs before our own and restates the incredible importance of community. So to the almost 2 million Muslims in Canada and the almost 2 billion around the world, Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
L'Honorable Député de Bellechasse.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, Quebec has experienced a pair of hideous occurrences. A fire in Montreal led to the death of several people, and then a senseless attack in Rosemont caused the deaths of more people. This horrible crime made the entire province enter into a state of mourning, especially just after a previous tragedy in Amqui, where some people who were just enjoying the spring weather during a pleasant walk were hit by a pickup truck. Several people passed away and many others were seriously injured. This is a very tragic week, and let us think about the victims and their loved ones who are going through a grievous time. On behalf of the leader of my party and the entire party, I'd like to offer my most sincere condolences.
The Honourable Member for Central Okanagan, Similkameen, Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, a group of thugs attacked a 21-year-old student in Kelowna on Friday night after he rode the bus. They severely beat him. But that wasn't enough for these lowlifes. They removed his turban and dragged him on the street by his hair. This was a hate crime committed by cowards who should be punished severely. Everyone here will agree that this senseless act of race-based violence is unacceptable, but we need to do more. These cowards thought that they could do whatever they wanted because they didn't think anyone would stop them. We need to ensure that anyone who walks our streets can do so without fear of violence. Right now, our justice system isn't tough enough. We must make meaningful changes to protect the public and make everyone feel safe on their streets again. If people expect nothing more than a slap on the wrist, it's part of the problem. Let's all hope that the student recovers fully, his attackers are caught, and face real consequences for the pain and indignity they imposed on this man. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Willowdale.
Mr. Speaker, today many here in Canada and across the world will gather to celebrate Nowruz. The spring equinox represents hope, optimism, and renewal. To all those celebrating Nowruz Piruz, this is a time to count our blessings and look forward to the year ahead with renewed vim and vigor. Yet, I'd be remiss if I did not mention that for many marking Nowruz today, the last year has represented much heartache and hardship. In Afghanistan, the Taliban are systematically marginalizing women and withholding from all girls the right to education and the promise of inclusive tomorrows. Minorities such as the Hazara have also seen their civic rights severely restricted. The same can be said of the Iranian regime that has responded to the yearnings of freedom and justice by courageous women and youth by unleashing violent repression and incarcerating well over 20,000 Iranians. The regime has also been particularly heavy-handed with minorities in Khuzestan, Kurdistan, and Baluchistan. More recently, it has come to light that more than 1,200 unsuspecting school-age girls have been systematically poisoned by the Iranian regime. Despite these injustices, we continue to see brazen acts of defiance and heroism. So while I would like to congratulate everyone who is ushering in a new year today, let me also remind the members of this House that we must do more to support those who are denied the fundamental rights we each hold dear and cherish at home. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very good.
The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, I am very pleased to rise in this House on behalf of the NDP to speak to International Francophonie Day. It is a very important day to celebrate our beautiful French language. It was born in Europe, but it is also very present here in North America, in the Arab world, and also in Africa, which is the continent with the largest number of francophones. This year, the theme is 320 million francophones and billions in cultural content. It's a matter of emphasizing cultural diversity within the francophonie, and also for francophiles the world over. A language is much more than vocabulary and grammar. It's also about a vision, a way of seeing the world and telling our stories. We need to ensure that French works are findable, especially in the new online world. So, the Francophonie organization is underscoring the importance of the discoverability of Francophone content. And conveniently, most parliamentarians in this House have been working on that with Bill C-11. There is still much to do for French, but we have accomplished a step in the right direction. Let's keep going with the rest of the world. The Honourable Member for Avignon-la-Métis-Matane-Matapédia. Mr. Speaker, on March 13th, an act of senseless violence was committed in my hometown, Amqui. 3 people lost their lives, and 8 more were injured, and some are still fighting for their lives. Our small community was seriously shaken by this tragedy, with many families now grieving and feeling a great deal of pain and anger. Despite a feeling of injustice, there is a great deal of solidarity among our tight-knit community. We are working together. I would like to express the gratitude that we feel for the hard work of the first responders whose courage saved lives. Despite the fact that our community has been shaken, it is stronger and more united than ever. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to offer my most sincere condolences to the victims and their loved ones. My thoughts are with the injured, witnesses, and all those who have been directly or indirectly affected. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Edmonton Mill Woods.
Mr. Speaker, last week in Edmonton, 2 brave police officers were killed in the line of duty while they were serving and protecting our community. 30-year-old Constable Brett Ryan, who served the Edmonton Police Service for 5.5 years, was also involved locally as a hockey referee. He and his wife were expecting their first child. 35-year-old Constable Travis Jordan, who served the Edmonton Police Service for 8.5 years, was known as kind and compassionate and always willing to help out a neighbor. Losing these 2 heroes
is a devastating and profound loss for their families and loved ones, and of course, for our entire Edmonton community. Let us all recognize and appreciate the bravery and sacrifice of all law enforcement officers who put their lives on the line to keep us all safe. Mr. Speaker, I know all of our thoughts and prayers are with the families and loved ones of Constable Jordan and Constable Ryan, and as well with the entire Edmonton Police Service at this very difficult time.
The Honourable Member for Sherbrooke. Mr. Speaker, happy springtime, and especially happy International Francophonie Day. French is part of our history. The language of Molière brings us together and makes us unique. It enables us to create relationships with Francophone communities within and outside Canada. This language, with 1,000 accents, is a social, cultural, and economic advantage for those who speak it. We should be proud of the fact that French is one of our official languages. We should not take it for granted. We should all promote French and continue to work to protect it. As Gilles Vigneault said, the Francophonie is a huge country with no borders. It is the country of the French language. It is the country within the invisible, spiritual, mental country within each of us. Let us continue to take care of it and to ensure that this collective legacy of ours thrives.
Following discussions among representatives of all parties in the House, I understand that there is an agreement to observe a moment of silence in honor of the fallen police officers in Edmonton, Alberta. J'invite les honorables députés de se lever. Merci. Thank you. Question orale or the Leader of the Opposition.
Monsieur le Président, aujourd'hui.
Mr. Speaker, today I'm announcing that the Conservative Party is ready to allow all of its staff to testify with regard to Beijing's foreign interference. The members of the Liberals team, the party that received assistance from Beijing, should do exactly the same thing. Katie Telford was at the head of a number of leadership campaigns for the Prime Minister and for the Liberal Party in 2 elections in which we know that there was foreign interference. Will her leader allow her to testify before committee? The Honourable Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, the opposition leader knows that very well that we take foreign interference very seriously, and that is why, since 2015, we have put in place a series of measures that did not exist when the leader of the opposition was the Minister for Democratic Reform. We increasingly strengthened measures to counter foreign interference. Last week, we announced the Right Honourable David Johnston as Special Independent Rapporteur. Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to take the situation very seriously. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Leaked intelligence reports that the Liberal Party received help in multiple elections from the communist government in Beijing, which wanted to keep the Prime Minister in place. We know that his top campaign officials like Katie Telford would have been aware of this help, and we need to know exactly what she knew and what the Prime Minister knew. Only she can answer these questions, but only the leader of the NDP will decide. He has the deciding vote. So the question for him is, will he help his boss, the Prime Minister, cover up, or will he vote for the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff to testify? Which is it?
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition knows very well that our government has always been very transparent with Canadians in terms of the efforts that we have made, Mr. Speaker, to counter foreign interference in our democratic institutions. It's something that Conservatives can claim to have done nothing about. Zero. Mr. Speaker, the Foreign Affairs Minister and I were before the Procedures Committee last week. We were happy to answer questions. The Prime Minister took a very important step last week in announcing the Right Honourable David Johnston as an independent special rapporteur, and we look forward to implementing his recommendations on what more can be done, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The question was for the NDP leader. I don't know if he's a part of the government. He should be able to get up and answer questions. I don't know why he's hiding behind his Liberal bosses again. His job is to work for the people, not to work for the Prime Minister. But now we're hearing rumors, they're unconfirmed, that he's going to help the Liberals cover up this scandal by blocking the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff from testifying about what she knew about Beijing's assistance of the Liberal Party in multiple elections. So finally, will the NDP leader stand up and answer the question? Will he help the Prime Minister cover up, or will he stand up for the truth?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, election interference is something on this side of the House that we've taken seriously since we first got elected in 2015. Unlike the members opposite, when the Leader of the Opposition was actually in charge of democratic institutions, he stood idly by and did nothing. For 10 years, that government did. So since we've been elected, Mr. Speaker, we have been seized with this issue since 2015. We've made election security a priority. We put in oversight processes. Mr. Speaker, this is an issue that's important to Canadians, and it's important to us on this side of the House.
Leader of the Opposition.
After 8 years of this Prime Minister, the wait times for medical treatments have doubled, and there are thousands of Canadians who have no family doctor. We're 26 in the OECD countries in terms of access to family doctors. We have 10,000 immigrants and other Canadians who are trained abroad but who are qualified. So when will the Prime Minister have one test and one license so that we Canadians can have access to all these brilliant young doctors? Thank you. The Honourable Minister of Health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am very pleased to remind my honourable colleague that on February 7th, we announced an investment of billions of dollars to help Canadians have access to better health care, and that under this agreement with all the provinces and territories, everyone agreed to recognize credentials here in the country and abroad. I'm very pleased that the colleague of the opposition is also interested in this question. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
How much money you spend, as long as we ban 19,000 foreign-trained doctors and 34,000 foreign-trained nurses from entering into the profession, we won't have enough people delivering the service. We've had a national testing standard for the trades for 70 years in this country, but nothing similar exists in the professions. A red seal for the trades, we should have a blue seal for the professions. It should be merit-based, based on what people prove they can do in a national test that allows them to practice across the country. Will the Prime Minister get up and make it happen?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
it is happening, Mr. Speaker. All provinces have now sent a letter with an agreement in principle committing to implementing national credentials recognition. It's happening in Atlantic Canada. It's happening in Ontario. It's happening in British Columbia with the leadership of this government. Obviously, words and support from the opposition leader matter also, but more importantly, action on the part of this government matter very much.
The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, despite the opposition parties calling for a public independent inquiry unanimously, Mr. Speaker, despite Canadians and Quebecers wanting the same thing, the Prime Minister insisted on unilaterally appointing a special rapporteur who is anything but independent. The trust of Canadians and Quebecers in this electoral system is at stake. I feel that the first duty of the Prime Minister should be to ensure democracy, to ensure that it's sound. When will the Prime Minister find his sense of responsibility, revoke the special rapporteur position, and create a public and independent inquiry? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, obviously we share the sentiments of our honourable colleague in terms of protecting democracy, democratic institutions, and to maintain and reinforce the trust of Canadians in those institutions. Mr. Speaker, that's exactly what we did last week by asking Right Honourable David Johnston to act as independent special rapporteur to look at all of the measures that we have taken when we formed government and to make public recommendations as to the next steps to be taken, and we will follow his recommendations. The Honourable Member for La Prairie. Mr. Speaker, Johnston and independent in the same sentence, that doesn't work. It's fine that Mr. Johnson is a friend of the family, that he has a cottage right beside that of the Trudeau family, and we don't even mind that he said that he felt at home in China when he made a trip. 38 million people do feel that this was the wrong choice. So the Prime Minister is really shooting himself in the foot. He needs to get his friend out of this mess and set up a public inquiry that is independent, as called for by all Canadians and Quebecers. The Honourable Member for Interparliamentary Affairs. Mr. Speaker, all Canadians recognize the important service that the former Governor-General did for this country and for Canadians. He was the Dean of the Law Faculty. He was the Dean of a university. He is an eminent Canadian, and he will work independently to prepare recommendations. He will look at all the measures that this government has put in place, and he will make recommendations as to what we continue to improve. I think that my honourable colleague should recognize this important gesture. The Honourable Member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Mr. Speaker, Canadians are wondering why it took this Prime Minister so long to set up a public inquiry on allegations of foreign interference. Those allegations are serious and they deserve serious responses. It's all very well to appoint a rapporteur, but it will result in nothing if a public and independent inquiry is not held to get to the bottom of things. We need to find responses and restore Canadians' trust in the electoral system. Will the Prime Minister mandate his new rapporteur to hold a public, independent inquiry on foreign interference? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, what we have done as a government is to take allegations of foreign interference very seriously, something that was not done before we formed government in 2015. We set up a series of measures, including a committee established that for national security, a nonpartisan committee that is tasked with studying matters of national security. And the rapporteur will go even further by reviewing the measures that are already in place the measures that are robust and that have been publicly described as such, and we will follow Mr. Johnson's recommendations.
Centre.
Mr. Speaker, childcare workers are leaving the sector and provinces aren't recruiting enough staff, making it tougher for parents to find spaces. Why? Inadequate benefits, working conditions, and wages that don't cover the bills. This is not a workers' shortage. It's a wage shortage, a respect shortage, and a dignity shortage. The Liberals promised personal support workers at least $25 an hour. Will the minister make the same commitment for childcare workers today?
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister for Families.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleague for her work and her support of our important work on childcare. In fact, in the Canada-wide agreements that we've signed with all provinces and territories, provinces and territories have committed to ensuring that they are able to recruit and retain ECEs. We know that ECEs and childcare workers form the backbone of our childcare system. Within those agreements, they can use some of that money to help with wage increases. In fact, we've seen that in many provinces and territories across the country. We're going to continue to work with PTs to make sure that we're supporting our ECEs right across this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, member for Thornhill.
Mr. Speaker, it's been weeks, more than 20 hours of talking out the clock on the cover-up from this government. Liberal MPs will do anything possible to keep the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff from testifying at the House Affairs Committee on what she knew about Beijing's election interference. Instead of the NDP showing some courage and standing up against the cover-up, surprise, surprise, it looks like they're going to support it. So will the Prime Minister stop stonewalling and allow his Chief of Staff to testify before members of Parliament, yes or no?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, election interference is an attack against each and every one of us. That the reality right now that the President of China and the President of Russia are meeting in Moscow should be concerning to all of us around what type of efforts are being made to undermine Canadian democracy. What has been offered is for the people who received the briefings, the national campaign directors in 2019 and 2021 to appear. The Conservatives, I would suggest, should do the same. I would also suggest, Mr. Speaker, that it should be including Russia and other foreign actors that are attempting to interfere in our democracy instead of having such a partisan focus.
Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Bring it on, Mr. Speaker. Testifying about sexual misconduct in the military, no problem for Mrs. Telford. Testifying about the We Charity scandal, no worries there. But testifying about what the PM knew about Beijing's interference in our elections, that one's off limits. The PM's Chief of Staff has appeared at parliamentary committees on numerous occasions to answer questions. She ran the campaign. She's campaign staff. What's the difference this time? What is the Prime Minister hiding? And why is the NDP letting them get away with it?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
As a Privy Councillor, the Leader of the Opposition would have been provided and was provided the opportunity for a full briefing. He has declined it. In fact, the National Security Committee of Parliamentarians, which gets the opportunity for the members opposite to be able to see every single document, is something that they are not willing to focus on or engage in. And it begs the question, Mr. Speaker, as we've offered this opportunity, as we've offered David Johnson, an independent, eminent Canadian, to look at this issue, what is their interest? It would appear to me, Mr. Speaker, that their interest is partisan in nature and that they are using this opportunity to grind a partisan axe.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
The official opposition brings one interest to this place, and that's the interest of Canadians to find out what this Prime Minister knew on foreign interference in our elections in 2019 and 2021 by the government in Beijing. But now in the NDP, a party that has twice voted to send Conservative staff to committee when we were in government and has twice voted for Katie Telford to go to committee with their coalition partners when we're in government, are now unwilling or unable to send her this time. So is it a condition of the supply and confidence deal between these coalition partners that the NDP not send Katie Telford to committee?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I'll tell you what obstruction looks like. When I was a critic and I was trying to deal with the then Conservative government, Justice Iacobucci and Justice O'Connor critically called for the establishment of an independent oversight mechanism filled with parliamentarians that could look into every aspect of government. And what did the opposition leader do when he was Minister of Democratic Reforms? Nothing. He did not act on that. He did not take action on it. We did, and that means that those members of Parliament from every single party have the opportunity to look into every aspect of this matter. We have offered witnesses. We have had many ministers testify. What is their interest?
The honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands and Rideau Lakes.
What we've received is horrific partisanship from that government House leader and these Liberals. They appointed a family friend of the Prime Minister, a board member on the Beijing-funded Trudeau Foundation, to advise the Prime Minister on whether he maybe should, probably might, could have a public inquiry. We're looking for a public inquiry for Canadians, and we're looking for the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff to testify at committee. Why won't these Liberals and their NDP coalition partners allow the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, Katie Telford, to testify?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
The honourable member across from me to be an honourable member. I am absolutely certain of his commitment to Canadian democracy. I hope that he would share the belief that every member in this House is equally committed to Canadian democracy, and that every member of this House is equally offended at the idea of foreign interference interrupting our democracy. What concerns me, Mr. Speaker, is that we have provided mechanisms for every party to be able to look at every aspect of this. We provided an eminent Canadian who is going to look at this independently and provide recommendations. We have offered multiple ministers, multiple witnesses. Their interest continues to be a partisan interest, not a factual interest. That is inappropriate.
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, the interference by the communist government in Beijing in the electoral process is a slap in the face to our democracy. This is wrong. We know what might have happened. Katie Telford is the Chief of Staff of the current Prime Minister, and she's led campaigns. We want to hear her in Parliamentary Committee. We know that the government doesn't want this. So here is my question for the member for Rosemont La Petite Patrie, a member of the coalition. Will he rise in this place and tell his constituents that he is going to vote for full freedom and transparency in this government and allow Ms. Telford to testify before committee? The Honourable Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, we share our colleagues' interest, of course, in the importance of strengthening democracy, and we don't want democracy to be slapped in the face, obviously, as he said, and so that's why we set up measures when we came to power that had never been in place when his party was in power. And we will ask David Johnston to look at all the measures that have been put in place to date and to make recommendations that will be made public as to what we can do even better to reassure Canadians that essential measures are in place. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent. Mr. Speaker, the Minister is a seasoned parliamentarian, an honourable man. What does he say to the fact that over 20 hours his his parliamentarians spoke nonsense for over 20 hours to prevent democracy from happening? This minister is a fan of, a partisan of parliamentary affairs. So will they call the Chief of Staff who can help us clear up what is happening with the communist regime of China? Will the minister give permission to Ms. Telford to testify before the Parliamentary Committee, yes or no? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, my honourable colleague knows full well that our government, since it came to power, has focused on strengthening democracy and democratic institutions, and he also knows as well that our ministers are available at any time to testify before parliamentary committees. My honourable colleagues, perhaps he wasn't there last week, but I'm sure that he saw the testimony before committee given by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and he knows very well that we will always be there to answer the questions of our colleagues. The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Mr. Speaker, Chinese interference is the most serious threat to democracy and national security. That is what CSIS said on Friday. And the government's response must match the fears of CSIS. But the creation of a rapporteur without a timeline or a mandate does not meet these criteria. The only valid response, because there is only one, that is transparent and cross-partisan to fight foreign interference. Will the government finally launch a public inquiry that is independent and transparent and public? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Speaker, and we agree that foreign interference is something that should never be a partisan issue, and that's why we appointed someone who's independent, someone who has an impeccable background, someone who will be able to review everything available when it comes to foreign interference in our elections and make recommendations. We value that independence. We know that David Johnston will be an outstanding individual to carry out this work and make recommendations to the government, which may include a public inquiry. Whatever the recommendations are, we will accept them.
The Honourable Member for Trois-Rivières. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If they want to know what independence is, they should ask us. It would be easy to criticize the choice of Mr. Johnston, but that would be letting the government get away with its greatest ethical lapse. It is facing the most serious threat against national security, as said by CSIS. It's trying to bury the affair, and it is choosing to try and gain time. There are only two possible conclusions to this appointment of the rapporteur. Either bury the affair or, as everyone is calling for, set up a public independent inquiry. Why doesn't the government get straight to the point and, for once and all, be ethical by launching this public inquiry? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, clearly the Bloc is trying to would have us believe that we don't take our democratic institutions seriously. When we set up measures to protect our elections, the Bloc voted against. We tried to prevent foreign financing, the Bloc voted against it. Strengthen the integrity of our election lists, the Bloc voted against it. Mr. Speaker, we take these matters very seriously, that is, protecting our democratic institutions, and we will continue to do everything in our power to strengthen them and protect them, and we would appreciate the support from the Bloc for once. Honourable Member for Laurentides-de-la-Belle. Mr. Speaker, wrong person, but especially the wrong position. Beyond Mr. Johnson and his qualities, it's the Prime Minister who chose to create the wrong position by inventing a special rapporteur. It is the Prime Minister who is delaying the investigation into the secret police stations. It is he who is delaying the inquiry into the bullying undergone by the Chinese community. And it is him who is delaying the study on election financing that could be illegal. He is the one who is sowing doubt about our democracy. He is the only obstacle to this public inquiry. When is he going to get out of the way? The Minister of Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Speaker, on the contrary, our government has put in place substantial measures to counter foreign interference. My colleague claims that the Prime Minister was not there to strengthen democratic institutions, and yet she knows full well that we are the first government, Mr. Speaker, to have set up, for example, a committee of parliamentarians to oversee matters of national security. We put in place other measures that will strengthen electoral transparency. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, the Right Honourable David Johnston will continue this important work.
Halton Hills.
Mr. Speaker, the motion in front of the House today orders the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff to testify about Beijing's foreign interference in front of committee. It's clear the government will be voting against the motion, but the government and its party cannot carry the House alone. And it's not clear whether or not its confidence and supply partner, the NDP, will be voting for or against the motion. The public has a right to know before the vote. Can the government tell us if its confidence and supply partner will be voting for or against the motion?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Mr. Speaker, what is clear is that David Johnston, who was appointed by Stephen Harper as Governor General, the Conservatives had confidence in him to be the Governor General of this country, is the individual who is charged as an eminent Canadian to oversee this entire process. That individual now they're calling into question, but the idea that Mr. Johnston would not be committed to Canadian democracy and not look at every corner of this issue with the interest of Canadian democracy at heart is offensive. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, they know through NSICOP that their members have the opportunity to see any and all information in committee. Unfortunately, they voted against creating that process.
Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, 3 times the Liberals and their NDP coalition partner blocked the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff from testifying about Beijing's election interference. And, Mr. Speaker, now Liberal MPs for nearly 24 hours at the direction of the Prime Minister have been filibustering my straightforward motion for Telford to appear. Why have these Liberals gone to such lengths to shield Telford? What is it that she knows that the Prime Minister wants hidden from Canadians?
Honourable Government House Leader.
Individuals who received briefings and who would have had knowledge of the 2019 and 2021 campaigns as national campaign directors have been offered to testify to committee. The ministers who are responsible have testified before committees. Other witnesses, experts, are testifying before committee. Why does the Conservative Party so solely and singularly focus on Katie Telford? I'll tell you why. It's a partisan interest, and it's deeply disturbing. Their interest here is to wedge and divide and to create partisan advantage. I would suggest when we're dealing with something as serious as foreign interference that our focus should be on protecting our democracy, not on partisan advantage.
The Honourable Member for St. Albert, Edmonton.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff is a critical witness to get to the heart of this scandal, namely what the Prime Minister knows, when he knew about it, and why he failed to respond to Beijing's election interference. If the NDP do an about-face and finally stand up for democracy instead of doing the bidding of this corrupt Prime Minister and the motion passes, will the Prime Minister respect the will of this House, or will he double down on his obstruction and double down on his cover-up?
The Honourable Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I noticed that you didn't get on your feet, but I will. Calling a member of this House corrupt is despicable. Calling a member of this Parliament corrupt is something I find absolutely reprehensible.
Order. Order. I'll let the Honourable Government House Leader start from the top, please.
Speaker, I heard some yell across the way. I am flawed. I have made many errors in my life, as I'm sure many members of this House have. I have never called in all of my time in opposition or government another person in this place corrupt. I have never stood in my place and leveled an allegation where you do not have, the members opposite do not have that information. They take rumor and conjecture and try to trump it up for partisan advantage and overreach with terms like corrupt. An individual and the Prime Minister who's dedicated his life to public service and making this country better, this place deserves better than that kind of debate. We're dealing with a serious issue in foreign interference. It deserves serious responses.
I want to remind the honourable members to use the words judiciously in the House and use parliamentary language. Parliamentary language being something that doesn't offend someone personally. The Honourable Member for Edmonton, Strathcona.
Speaker, in Alberta, toxic water with poisonous levels of arsenic, dissolved metals, and hydrocarbons leaked from tailing ponds into Treaty 8 land and water for 9 months. And neither the provincial nor federal government bothered to inform the people who live there. This is the Liberal government that says they care about the environment and Indigenous people, while they blocked tailing ponds oversight in the Canadian Environmental Protections Act. Like all Albertans, I am horrified and outraged. How can Canadians trust this government to protect our water and prevent this from ever happening again?
Yes. The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to thank my honourable colleague for her question and to remind her that neither Indigenous nations nor the federal government were told by the seepage and the leak before February. So for 9 months, the federal government did not know about this. We have since sent enforcement officers who are doing monitoring. Myself and many of my colleagues are working with the communities to provide them with what they need, including, if they wish so, to have drinkable water sent to them, as testing is still ongoing for water in their communities. We are working on this, Mr. Speaker. We will continue to work on this with the Indigenous nations and the Alberta government. Thank you.
Member for Timmins, James Bay.
So Joe Biden is coming to town. It's going to be a great opportunity for him to school this Prime Minister on how he can move from saying nice words on the climate crisis to actually getting something done. Because Biden has put an unprecedented $370 billion to ensure the United States is a leader in the clean energy economy. Now, we know the Conservatives don't believe in clean energy, but when I've been meeting with Alberta workers, they're saying, what is this government going to do? So simple question, how much money is the Prime Minister going to put in this budget for clean energy to make sure that Canadian workers are not left behind?
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for his question, and we welcome President Biden's visit to Canada in the coming days to talk about these important issues, about the clean economy, about fighting climate change. I would like, however, to remind my honourable colleague that we're already investing in Canada $120 billion, not coming, it's happening now, which is per capita 3 times more than what the U.S. is doing, Mr. Speaker. We have a price on pollution in Canada. Unfortunately, our U.S. friends cannot have a price on pollution. We're doing a number of things in Canada that the Americans are telling us they only wish they could be doing, Mr. Speaker, but we will be happy to work with President Biden and the U.S. on these.
Honourable Member for Guelph.
Mr. Speaker, we know that there have been significant roadblocks to building housing supply at the municipal level. The system simply isn't working. That's why I was pleased to join with the Prime Minister and Minister of Housing to announce further federal leadership to help get more homes approved and built through the new Housing Accelerator Fund. Could the Minister please tell this House about the details of this new program and what it means for Canadians?
Hear, hear.
Honourable Minister for Housing.
I want to thank the Honourable Member for his question, Mr. Speaker. On Friday, I was pleased to join him together with the Prime Minister to announce the launch of the Housing Accelerator Fund, a $4 billion initiative that is meant to eradicate the roadblocks and get more housing built faster for Canadians. This will create 100,000 new units, as well as create permanent systems change that will ensure municipalities approve more housing for Canadians. This is just one part of our government's national housing strategy, and we will not rest until every Canadian has access to a safe and affordable place to call home.
All right. For Simcoe North.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Prime Minister's high-spending government, they have little choice left but to raise taxes on hard-working Canadians. That's right. If Canadians want to numb the pain of higher inflation or a slowing economy with their favorite beer, spirit, or wine, they have to dig deeper into their pockets. The excise tax on alcohol is going up over 6.3%, costing consumers and businesses over $125 million next year. Will the Liberal government stop hosing Canadians and stop their automatic increases to the escalator tax on alcohol this year?
The Honourable Minister for Tourism.
I want to thank the Honourable colleague for his question, but first let me begin by thanking all members of this House, Mr. Speaker, and Canadians for sending in their condolences and their support to Edmontonians and to people as we grieve the loss of Travis Jordan, Brett Ryan, constables with the Edmonton Police Service. Our community is grieving. Canadians are with us. We will remember them. On the substantive issue that my colleague raises, Mr. Speaker, we have an escalator tax in place on beer. We have lowered low alcohol beer. And what he's saying, Mr. Speaker, is not entirely accurate. The increase this year will be 1 cent per can of beer. We understand that, Mr. Speaker. We're going to continue to monitor the situation.
Honourable Member for Kelowna Lake Country.
Well, Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal Prime Minister, he is now imposing the biggest tax increase ever on April 1st on beer, wine, cider, and spirits. A crushing 6.3% tax increase. Now, these cost increases will trickle down to restaurants, retailers, and ultimately Canadian consumers, and in and itself will continue to perpetuate increasing inflation. Will the Prime Minister cancel this April 1st tax increase on Canadians?
The Honourable Minister.
Speaker, I was clear in my previous answer, but let's go a step further. It's disingenuous for Conservative members to stand up and talk about giving breaks to small business when every single member on that side voted against tax breaks for small businesses. Rank hypocrisy, Mr. Speaker. 1 cent per beer. We're watching the inflation escalator for beer. We understand what wine, beer, and spirits do for our economy, Mr. Speaker, but they can't have their cake and eat it too.
Honorable député de Montmagny.
The honourable member from Montmagny-Lille, Kamouraska-Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, I have 4 microbreweries, distilleries and bars and restaurants in my riding, and every single one has denounced the increase in excise tax on their products. This government has been here for 8 years and never has it been so difficult for all of the population. And now they want to get even more revenue on the backs of Canadians. Will the Prime Minister do the only thing to reduce inflation? And will they cut the excise tax increase in the next budget? The Honourable Minister. I understand the important contribution that spirits, wine and other alcohols add to our community, Mr. Speaker. What we see with inflation and excise tax will add 1 cent per can of beer. That keeps our tax system egalitarian and responsible for all Canadians. Mr. Speaker, we will do the right thing. We will continue to be here to help Canadians with affordability. The Honourable Member from Montmagny-Lille, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Mr. Speaker, 8 years. This government has been here for 8 years and life has not been so difficult as today. Some people have to turn to food banks in order to get food. What has the government done over the years? Increase the cost of living everywhere. Doubling rent. Groceries have increased. Inflation is at its highest in the past 40 years. When will the government finally work for Canadians by stopping tax increases? The Honourable Minister for Sports. Since we took power in 2015, I'd like to remind this House that we have reduced poverty in Canada. 2.7 million Canadians have left poverty behind since the previous Conservative government, by the way. This is 582,000 children and 178,000 seniors that have been able to leave poverty behind thanks to our programs. And we continue to be here for people, for example, by offering $500 for Canadians who find it hard to pay their rent. So what the Conservatives should explain to Canadians is why every single time they vote against helping those who need the most. The Honourable Member for Pierre-Boucher, les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, 11 days to go. Quebec has 11 days left to submit green infrastructure and public transit projects for our municipalities since Ottawa decided to move up the deadline unilaterally by 2 years. 11 days, or Ottawa will directly pocket $2.3 billion of Quebecers' money directly to Quebec City's 11 days, or they'll force us to wave goodbye to $2.3 billion in cultural centres, shoreline erosion and water treatment projects. Instead of threatening our cities, will the government simply extend this new deadline? The Honourable Minister for Interparliamentary Affairs. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for his important question because it allows me to remind him how well we're working with the Government of Quebec when it comes to infrastructure. A number of times I've had extremely constructive discussions with Minister Julien, and I'm completely confident that by the 31st of March we will find an agreement with the Government of Quebec on a significant list of infrastructure projects as defined by my colleague. Instead of just looking for a fight, we're looking to work with Quebec, and that is what we are doing right now. The Honourable Member for Pierre-Boucher, les Patriotes Verchères. Mr. Speaker, they respect their word so much and they work so hard with Quebec that when they sign agreements, well, they don't even follow the agreements that are signed. That's shameless. The government is threatening to take $2.3 billion away from our cities for projects like public transit. And at the same time, for example, the government keeps approving projects like Trans Mountain. That's just past $30 billion. Imagine, for our cities, it's an 11-day ultimatum. 11 days, or you get cut off. But for dirty oil companies, no ultimatum, no cap. The sky's the limit. A real favourable treatment for our for our oil and gas? Why not guarantee our mayors that they will get the money for their green projects? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, quite the contrary, we will not stifle Quebec of money for such important projects like public transit, like my colleague identified. For example, La Ligne Bleue in Montreal, tramway in Quebec. These are essential projects. In my discussions with the mayor for Quebec and the mayor of Longueuil, Mr. Speaker, we've always said that we will be here with the Quebec government in order to support its projects, its significant projects for the future, for its economic and environmental future for Quebec and for the rest of Canada. And I'm sure that we'll have an excellent agreement in the next few days.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal Prime Minister, Canadians can hardly afford to eat, drive, or heat their homes. Anne from Thorhill told me her gas bill is over $1,000, and a quarter of that was carbon tax. She said, quote, last winter with the horrid cold snap, I still didn't have bills this high. She said, the carbon tax is brutal. The carbon tax has hiked the cost of everything, and the Liberals are just going to make it worse. So when will they take responsibility for the pain they've caused and axe the tax, or get out of the way so Conservatives can fix what they broke?
The Honourable Minister for Natural Resources.
Mr. Speaker, as I've said in the House many times, affordability is obviously a critically important issue for all members of this House. This government has put in place a range of measures to address affordability concerns, including the fact that the price on pollution actually results in 8 out of 10 families getting more money back than they pay. It is an affordability measure in and of itself. But, Mr. Speaker, climate change is real, whether my colleagues across the aisle admit it or not. Yes. It is something we must address for the future of our children. We must do so in a manner that will build good jobs and economic opportunities in every province and territory, and that is exactly what we are doing.
Honourable Member for King Vaughan.
Speaker, after 8 years of this Prime Minister, Canadians can no longer afford to eat, heat, or house themselves. When the Liberals triple the carbon tax, the folks I know having to choose between heating and eating. Seniors like Sheila, Neil, and Marshall worry that surviving the next carbon increase on April 1st will be impossible for them to manage. Seniors are currently forced to use their overdrafts to cover their expenses. When will this Prime Minister exercise compassion and clear the path so Conservatives can fix this disaster they have created?
The Honourable Minister for Seniors.
Years, we've been there and supporting seniors and Canadians every single step of the way. Mr. Speaker, but you don't have to take my word for it, Mr. Speaker. The Conservative member herself was highlighting in committee how poverty rates for seniors have dramatically decreased, Mr. Speaker, since we took office, Mr. Speaker. And she's right. It's because, unlike them, we decided to invest in them, Mr. Speaker, by making sure we're investing and increasing their guaranteed income supplement, by increasing the old age security as pension for Mr. Speaker. Unlike them, Mr. Speaker, we're going to continue to make sure Canadians, including seniors, are supported now and into the future. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Foothills.
After 8 years, Canadian farmers have clearly had enough of this Liberal Prime Minister. In a recent survey, they were asked how many felt the Liberals were doing a good job supporting Canadian agriculture. Do you know how many Canadian farmers said yes? 2%. 2%. I wonder why. Maybe it's the punishing carbon tax that is going up yet again on April 1st. And according to the Canadian Food Price Index, when the Liberal NDP coalition triples the carbon tax, an average Canadian farm will pay $150,000 a year in carbon taxes alone. Why is this Prime Minister so determined to tax Canadian farm families into the ground?
L'Honorable Ministre.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Quite the contrary. We are the government that has best supported farmers and producers. When the Conservatives were here, they would cut when it came to programs. They would cut in investments in innovation and research. We need research. We need innovation in order to improve production, in order to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, while increasing production, because we know that people are betting on Canada in order to meet food safety. We had the biggest budget in Canada's history. $4 billion. We're here for producers. The Honourable Member for Laval-les-Îles, Mr. Speaker. The French language is an asset for our country. It is the key to rich and diverse communities and cultures around the world. And here in Canada, French is spoken from Whitehorse to Laval via the Gaspé and Ile Madame in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. Can the Minister for Official Languages inform this House about the measures that our government is taking to protect the French language across the country? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Minister for Official Languages. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for Laval des Îles for his question and his hard work. Mr. Speaker, our French language is precious, and yes, it is under threat. That is the reason for which we are the first federal government to recognise that French is in decline across Canada, and we are the first government to make sure that we are doing everything in order to protect and promote French throughout the country. With our Bill C-13, as well as our upcoming action plan for official languages, we will do our just part in order to protect and promote French throughout the country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And at the same time, I would like to take the opportunity to wish a good Francophonie Day to everyone.
Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
Mr. Speaker, after 8 years of this Liberal Prime Minister, violent repeat offenders continue to get bail and are released into our communities. In Ajax, Ontario, a soccer star was stabbed to death and his alleged murderer has been released on bail. This suspect was previously arrested and charged with violent crimes just 1 month before stabbing this soccer player, Mr. Speaker. Canada has become a place where violent repeat offenders charged with second-degree murder are getting out on bail into our communities. When will the Prime Minister take responsibility for this reckless bail system so we can fix what he broke?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Canadians deserve to be and feel safe. We all have a role to play in protecting communities. The laws on bail are clear, Mr. Speaker. If accused poses a risk to public safety, they should be denied bail. Federal, provincial, and territorial leaders met last week, including with the Minister of Justice, on the issue of bail and have come forward with a communique. We hope to continue to work with our provincial and territorial partners in order to ensure that our communities are safe.
Member for Kildonan St. Paul.
There it is, Mr. Speaker. Their solution is just more meetings and more talk and no action. And meanwhile, Canadians are being murdered. Liberals have had 8 years to take action, and they've only made it worse. We've seen a 32% rise in violent crime under their watch, a doubling of gang murders, and headline after headline of violent repeat offenders getting out on bail only to hurt more innocent Canadians. Mr. Speaker, our bail system is broken, and how can Canadians possibly trust that this Liberal government's going to fix it when they're the ones who broke it?
Right. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just 2 weeks ago, the ministers of justice from the provinces as well as the federal government got together and brought forward some very important ideas on reforming the bail system. It's very clear that our communities need to be safe, Mr. Speaker. There is a right to bail enshrined in our Constitution, and the ministers of justice came together with a program that will allow for us to ensure that our communities remain safe, at the same time ensuring the right to bail.
L'honorable député de Bellechasse.
The Honourable Member for Bellechasse-les-Échemins-Lévis. Mr. Speaker, there have been tragic, violent events that have cost the lives of many Quebecers. This is part of a context. Since this Prime Minister since the Prime Minister took office, crime has increased by 32%. Our streets are becoming less safe, and yet this government is reducing sentences and allowing criminals to serve their time at home. At home, Mr. Speaker. When will this government finally take the situation seriously, protect victims, and impose tough sentences for violent crime? Mr. Speaker. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, it is the Conservative Party that keeps hindering our work when it comes to national security and national safety. We've put forward a bill that just seeks to increase security and safety in Canada, and the Conservatives have already said that they don't want to hear anything about it. We've already had a number of murders this year, including one yesterday evening in Montreal, Mr. Speaker, and we have to strengthen firearms protection, firearms regulations, and we hope the Conservatives will help us.
Davenport. Mr. Speaker, climate science must be at the heart of our decision-making process to fight climate change. The latest UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change scientific report adds to our global knowledge and understanding, and it shows the indisputable fact that humanity continues to warm our planet to dangerous levels. The science is clear that only urgent and sustained emission reductions will limit warming of our planet. Can the Minister of Environment and Climate Change inform this House on Canada's progress on achieving our net zero targets?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for her question and her advocacy on this very important issue. Yes, today, Mr. Speaker, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change issues another stark warning. We collectively need to act to fight climate change, something the official opposition doesn't seem to have understood over the last 30 years, Mr. Speaker, where they want to make pollution free again in Canada, where they have no idea whatsoever what needs to be done to fight climate change and to adapt to the reality of climate change. In 2021 alone, Mr. Speaker, $17 billion of climate impacts to Canadians. That's what climate change means to Canada, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Well, the Honourable Member for Port Moody Coquitlam.
Mr. Speaker, caregivers are at a breaking point as this Liberal government fails to solve the healthcare crisis. This is putting increased pressure on families to care for their loved ones. The important job of caring for parents, grandparents, and children is most often left up to women, and this work is unpaid. The government can support caregivers by immediately making the Canada Caregiver Credit a refundable tax benefit to put money back in people's pockets. Why is this government delaying this benefit for those who care for their loved ones?
Honourable Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We're obviously very mindful of the incredible challenges that patients and workers face in these very difficult times, and that's why just 6 weeks ago, the Prime Minister announced a historic investment of almost $200 billion in addition to the current level of the CHD, in addition to the value of the tax points. Those dollars, Mr. Speaker, obviously matter very much, but more importantly, they matter because they're going to lead to significant outcomes, positive outcomes for workers and patients in the years to come.
Member for Kitchener Centre.
Mr. Speaker, public transit is in crisis. Municipalities like mine are being forced to raise fares while in some cases simultaneously cutting service due to a lack of investment from higher orders of government. Groups across the country, from Environmental Defence to the Canadian Urban Transit Association, are sounding the alarm, warning that transit systems are at a risk of failing into a death spiral without critical operational support. Will the minister ensure not only capital funding in Budget 2023, but the critical operating support being called for across the country?
The Honourable Minister for Interparliamentary Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I think the honourable member will acknowledge that our government has made multi-billion-dollar investments in improving Canada's public transit infrastructure in large municipalities and in small rural communities as well. He correctly identifies, Mr. Speaker, that during the acute months of COVID, our government stepped up in partnership with provinces to support municipalities to operate transit systems that were critical for essential workers to be able to serve people during COVID, and will continue, Mr. Speaker, to work with municipalities and partners to ensure that Canada has the best transit system in the world.
That's all the time we have for question period today. C'est tout le temps que nous avons. Je voudrais signaler aux députés la présence à la tribune, Madame.
I would like to call the attention of members to the presence of Ms. Nathalie Roy in the gallery, Speaker for the Quebec National Assembly.
À la suite de discussions entre les...
Following discussions among representatives of all parties in the House, it's my understanding that there is an agreement to observe a moment of silence following the tragic event that occurred in Amqui, Quebec. I now invite honourable members to rise.
Merci. Thank you. We have a point of order for the honourable member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
Thank you, Speaker. In reviewing Hansard from June 6th of 2006, I wanted to draw to the government House Leader's attention through you, and believe he'd like the opportunity to respond, to comments that he made alleging that corruption and fraud had been committed by another member. Now, I'm looking to see, based on his comments made in question period today in response to the member for St. Albert Edmonton, if he would like to withdraw his assertion and perhaps offer an apology.
Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'll read from Hansard on the date in question, June 6, 2006. Mr. Speaker, there have been allegations of both fraud and corruption, and the question is simple. And by the way, that question was with respect to the Conservative Party and the In-N-Out scandal. It was not with respect to any member in this House. I stand by my comment that no member of Parliament should call any other member of Parliament corrupt. It's inappropriate. It should not have occurred.
Order. 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 I just want to remind the honourable members not to call each other names. It's a very simple principle. Do not call another member a name regardless of which side you're sitting on, or accuse them of something that is, well, calling them a name. So I'll leave it at that, and I'm sure both sides will learn from today's experience.
The member from Avalon.
The member for Avalon.
Yeah, point of order, Mr. Speaker. I've listened now for weeks on end in question period, members getting up and referring to a government that's been in power for 8 years. This government won't be in power for 8 years until October 19th. I'd like for that to be corrected.
I'm afraid the Speaker does not have the power to regulate either the questions that are being asked or the answers that are being given. That is up to the honourable members to do. Tabling of documents. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 36-8A, I have the honour to table in both official languages the government's responses to 39 petitions. These returns will be tabled in an electronic format.
39, you've been busy.
So, House tablings of documents. Let me just bring the microphone back. Introduction of government bills. Déclaration.
Statements by ministers.
Rapport de délégation.
Reports from interparliamentary delegations.
Davenport.
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 34-1, I have the honour to present to the House in both official languages the following reports of the Canadian NATO Parliamentary Association respecting its participation